Welcome to the regular meeting of the City of Morgantown Board of Zoning Appeals. Please turn off all cell phones or other devices that may disrupt these proceedings. It is the duty of this board to consider requests for relief from the requirements of the city's zoning regulations, to consider conditional use permit requests, and to hear administrative appeals. The board conducts business in the following order: review, amend, and approve meeting minutes of a previous meeting. Move then to unfinished business, take up new business, and then conclude with announcements from staff. Each request is heard in the order that it appears on the agenda. For each conditional use and variance request, the following is done. I will introduce the agenda item, and the Planning Division will present a staff report which may or may not offer a recommendation. The applicant agent will be asked to present their justification for their request, which may include questions by members of the board. We will then open a public hearing to hear testimony in support of or in opposition to the request. Rules regarding public testimony are as follows. Anyone wishing to testify during the public hearing may do so once recognized by me or may, in lieu of oral testimony, submit written testimony to the chair. All recognized speakers must approach the podium, state their name and address for the record, and speak clearly into the microphone. All comments must be addressed to the board, should be relevant to the application, and may not be of a personal nature or personal attacks. All speakers will be limited to 5 minutes. If members of the board have any questions of the speaker, that time will not be counted toward his/her 5 minutes. If there is a large number of speakers, including many who are part of groups or organizations, we may, to avoid repetitive comments, elect to ask for a representative to speak on behalf of the group or organization. Speakers are notified that irrelevant comments or comments of a personal nature or personal attacks may result in the speaker forfeiting his/her opportunity to participate in the public hearing. I may elect to recognize the applicant agent at the end of the public hearing to provide rebuttal or additional comments, which will be limited to 5 minutes. If members of the board have any questions of the applicant agent, that time will not be counted toward his/her 5 minutes. After all testimony is heard, we will declare the public hearing closed, and no further public comment will be permitted. Uncivil, unruly, and/or disruptive behavior at any time during this meeting is prohibited and will result in removal from this public meeting. State law requires the board to consider findings of fact for each conditional use and variance request. The request cannot be granted unless a majority of the quorum present finds in the positive of all of the findings of fact. The board may elect to continue the hearing to another date if it needs additional information. Applicants and requesting parties will be notified in writing by the Planning Division of the board's findings and conclusions. Regardless of whether a request is approved or denied, decisions of the board can be appealed to the Circuit Court of Montague County within 30 days upon receipt of the written notification from planning. Any work done relating to decisions rendered by this board during this 30-day appeals period is at the sole financial risk of the applicant. Thank you for your consideration and respect for these proceedings and the opinions of all meeting participants. So, let's call roll. Ms. Cook.
Here.
Mr. Misfell.
Here.
Mr. Benison is present. Let the record show that we do have a quorum, and we can continue with this meeting. We have meeting minutes to consider from our regular January 15, 2025 meeting. Any comments? Recommendations?
Yeah, I think they would be best moved to next meeting.
Okay, well, no, this is for the meeting minutes from the last meeting. Any changes or emendations, or
No.
did you see anything? That
No.
No? All right, I move that we approve meeting minutes from the January 15th meeting.
A second.
How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so Meeting minutes from January 15, 2025 duly accepted into the record. The next agenda item is election of officers, specifically chairperson and vice chairperson. I think we're inclined to, just in light of the fact that we have just 3 members present, we're going to just leave that for a future meeting, either the March meeting or the April meeting.
Okay.
Do we know, do we have any items for, any applications for March?
Yeah, there's, off the top of my head, I think there's at least 3 or 4.
So there's the possibility that we can take the election
Next month.
issue up at the next meeting then,
Yeah, there'll be a next regular meeting.
subsequent. If there isn't a March meeting, we'll consider it at the April. All right, so moving to new business, our first case is VAR 25-006, presented by, or represented by Eric Wengelar for 445 Van Voorst Road. Request by Eric Wengelar on behalf of West Virginia University Hospitals, Inc., for variance relief from Section 1347.04 of the city's Planning and Zoning Code regarding setbacks, City Tax District 15, 7th Ward, Tax Map 6, Parcel 74, 74.3, and 76.4 in the R1 Single Family Residential District.
The applicant seeks to build a new WVU Eye Institute and shared parking facility at the above referenced location. It'll be an approximate 6-acre development, which gives 56,645 square feet of site area. Below is a list of uses per floor. Before I get into that, that's the general kind of look of the area for it. And on there is the garage portion of the development, with some attachments on there just showing the referenced variance 006 for setbacks is kind of shown up there. And on the second one, it shows kind of the rest of the variances that'll be asked for, 007, 008, and 009 being for 16 feet minimum rear setback for the Eye Institute, additional loading space variance being 008 for the Eye Institute, and long-term bicycle storage variance relief as well for the Eye Institute. But shown up there. The 4 floors that will be involved in the Eye Institute are on the first floor. There'll be exam rooms, testing rooms, waiting areas, loading docks, waste and water services room. On the second floor, there'll be more exam rooms, testing rooms, waiting rooms, storage for and mechanical, electric, and gas manifold rooms. On the third floor will be where the OR is, as well as the post-anesthesia care unit. On the fourth floor will be additional exam rooms, conference center, offices, and an unfinished shelved space. Based on the conditions listed above, the applicant is requesting the following. Variance relief of 24 feet maximum front setback and 5-foot minimum side setback, being variance 25006. Variance relief of 16 feet minimum rear setback for variance 25007. Variance relief of 1 additional loading space for variance 25008. And variance relief from section 136504, being long-term bicycle storage, which is variance 25009. And that concludes staff report.
Thank you. I do want to mention, I noticed for the exhibits, the figures, it's referencing the other parts of the case, so -007, -008, -009. And those concern variance relief for setbacks, the loading requirements, and the bicycle storage as you referenced. I just wanted to mention that the exhibits are referencing these other cases.
Yes.
Do we have a representative for this case?
Yeah, so Reason for the setbacks to explain
Can
this.
you,
Go ahead.
before you
Yeah.
get underway, can you just state your name
Who I am.
and your,
Sure.
a reference address for the record?
Yeah, my name is Jeff Gola. I work for Thrasher Group. I'm working on behalf of the W Hospital Incorporated, and I'm the lead civil site guy on the project.
And for Thrasher, is there
Thrasher,
a
it's
address that you can
Yeah,
reference?
600 White Oaks Boulevard, Bridgeport, West Virginia.
All right, thank you.
So, what you see up here is a parking deck. We're asked for a couple requests on front setback. There's an existing stormwater pond that is needed for this project that exists now that we're actually widening the front. That limits us to pushing it towards 705 because of stormwater management pond that we need for the requirements of MUB and so forth. The other variance number 2, relief is we're exceeding the 5-foot setback because we're building a pedestrian bridge, a 2-story pedestrian bridge that connects the parking deck to the level 3 and 4 of the Eye Institute. The goal there is patrons who are in those floors can walk directly into their medical facility there and back and forth to eliminate traffic down below. So therefore, the bridge is overtopping that setback and therefore exceeding the 5-foot. That one there has 2 variances on the parking deck. If you don't mind flipping to the other sheet for me, see that. On this one variance is the setback for the 24-foot, which should be 40. In the back of the appendage, we are making a parking lot and a storage area for ambulance. That's direct access. So if there is a situation that requires that sort of authority, they'll be parked there. They can get out and obviously head up to the main medical facility at Ruby. So therefore, we need to get that. We edged into the 40-foot setback toward the road. The variance for less loading docks, essentially for the purpose of this building, we just don't need more than 2. We just don't have that kind of usage. It's more for deliveries for medical supplies, but it's not a everyday warehouse kind of a deal. We just don't need that extra one for that space. Plus, we are limited on space also. And then the last one, short term, and the hospital can vouch for this. They obviously have a huge facility at the road. They see short term bicycles, but they've never seen long term bicycles from their staff or anybody in that area. So they're just asking for no usage for long term bicycle storage. And that essentially is the 5 different items, setbacks and for the conditions.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
In terms of the loading dock space,
Yeah.
are you making that request with regard to having like adequate parking space requirements?
Yeah, so I believe per code and
Is
how
that
I
a
understood it, is it
consideration?
requires 3 based on the square footage, is that correct? And just because of the sheer width and the strike, we can't really fit 3 in, nor do we need 3. So that's really why we're requesting it. It calls for 3 based on square footage. Type of facility we're using doesn't really require or need 3, and we really don't have the space for it either, honestly, because the other part of that actually handles compacting and trash, and it would impede into the alley street that we use and into other apparatuses that we need for the building purpose.
All right. But you don't have parking capacity concerns
No.
overall with respect to the site in general?
No, because overall site, the parking deck itself and the existing surface lot that's across it will easily handle the Institute for sure.
Right.
Yeah, so there you go. That's the whole intent, to have all employees, all patrons. That's why we set the pedestrian bridge up, so we can utilize that space to get all visitors and employees on that side of the street, for lack of better words, and just for drop off on this side. So no, there's no issue with parking.
Anyone have any questions at this point? No? Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing for this part of the consideration of the project. So we're opening the public hearing for VAR 25-006-007-008-009. Anyone wishing to speak in support of or in opposition to these cases, now is your chance to do so. Seeing no one, we're going to close the public hearing. Mr. Thompson?
Please see the attached application to review the findings of fact listed, as staff have had no comments or modifications to it. Staff support the applicant's request for variance relief as their proposed uses are consistent with the intent of the 2023 Comprehensive Plan. If the Board of Zoning Appeals grants the applicant variance relief from the requested sections of the city's Planning and Zoning Code, the new construction shall be subject to the following conditions. If there's any modifications or changes to the site plan, they shall be compliant with the city's Planning and Zoning Code, or the applicant shall seek variance relief from the Board of Zoning Appeals. The second condition on here is a Type 3 DSI site plan is submitted to and approved by the Planning Commission. That condition is no longer necessary. They did go to the Planning Commission and were given approval conditional that the BZA's meeting approves of their variances. So the DSI site plan submitted and approved by the Planning Commission has already been done.
So I would say with respect to the front setback, the biopond, the stormwater management considerations constitute a hardship. It's pre-existing. And the request is just, for me, constitutes a reasonable request for the applicant to reasonably develop the site.
Okay, so are we taking these one by one?
Yeah, you'll have to vote on them one at a time.
But the findings of fact and whatnot apply to all?
No, they're in order of the way that they show up. So the first set will be 006, next set 007, and then in order.
Just to be clear, 006, the findings of fact are begin on page 25, right?
Mine says 23.
23.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. But, well, okay. Oh, I see, okay. Wait a minute. Do we have any questions about the first set of findings of fact, beginning on page 23?
I do not.
Right, so this is 25-006, right? Okay. No, I don't have any questions.
Let me just go back. So do we have, there not being any questions? So this first set of findings of fact relate to the variance relief from section 1347.04 of the Planning and Zoning Code regarding setbacks. So this is specifically this setback is the front yard setback.
Yeah, variance 25006 is for the front maximum setback on the garage, and then as well as the side setback for that,
Retention pond.
yeah, for the retention pond, and then that side setback for their bridge connecting to the institute, because they would be encroaching on setbacks for that, because these are two separate parcels.
All right. So do we have a motion for that first set of findings of fact pertaining to VAR 25-006?
Yeah, I move that we accept the findings of facts for VAR 25006.
Seconded.
We have a motion to accept the findings of fact for -006, seconded by Mr. Misfeld. How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we've accepted the findings of fact for VAR 25-006. Maybe, can we just do motions on the individual findings of fact and then grant the variance, the overarching variance?
Well,
Or do we,
potentially, if they're going to just vote on the individual findings of fact, could they then just grant at the end all the findings of fact that were
We
approved?
can make it messy.
Either way, but the findings of fact should be voted on individually.
individually?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, take up the individual findings of fact, then do the overarching variance.
Yeah, well,
No?
no, because I think it'd be messy.
Okay,
Could
so
get-
you want to do
Yeah, it's not gonna take that
individual
long.
variances?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to consider the individual sets of findings of fact, and then we're going to make an individual motion for each of the variances.
If that is what the board wants to do. Yeah, it would be up to your guys' decision.
I want to just vote on each one as we go through,
Okay,
so I think it'd be messy if we don't.
right.
So
Okay.
I move that we grant the variance for VAR 25006 with the one condition that was remaining in the packet,
Mhm.
so that that can be included in any follow-up.
And that condition is going to apply to each of the variances, and
Correct.
that reads, any other modifications or changes to the site plan shall be compliant with the city's planning and zoning code, or the applicant shall seek variance relief from the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Yes.
So in other words, if there are any even slight changes to the proposed plan, you will seek further variances. Okay, so we have a motion to grant the variance for VAR 25-006. I'll second that.
Aye.
And how do we vote?
Aye.
Okay, so we've granted that first variance pertaining to the specific setbacks. Okay, so we're going to move to the findings of fact for VAR 25-007. Correct me if I'm wrong, oh, wait a minute, that's 008.
Mine's on page 27.
It's on 27.
Okay. So these findings of fact referenced on page 27, very similar to -006. So I move that we accept the findings of fact as reference for VAR 25-007.
I'll second.
We have a motion to grant the findings of fact for VAR 25-007 with a second. How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then do we have a motion to grant variance for VAR 25-007? Again, regarding setbacks.
Yes. I move
Subject.
that we grant the variance for VAR 25-007 as stated in the packet.
Subject to the single condition referenced on page 23.
Okay.
I will, do you want to?
Go ahead.
I will second that. So we have a motion to grant the specific variance with a second. How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye. So we've granted that variance. Next one is VAR 25-008. This relates to the loading requirements in the loading dock area. The findings of fact pertaining to this are
And they're getting
referenced.
rid of one bay? Partner,
The code calls for 3, and we're just asking for 2, essentially what we're asking for.
okay, appreciate your clarification.
Thank you.
Okay.
And that's due to not needing the third, not being able to justify a third, requiring a third, and you also have space limitation considerations.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, so these findings of fact, does anyone have any questions about this? These are a little more detailed. Thank you for the level of detail.
So are these spaces used for like specific deliveries or just general, these 2 bays?
More general, I mean, basically, we have enough room to get a tractor trailer in, so they're specific to the hospital only. I mean, that's what it's for.
So the spaces accommodate tractor trailers?
Yes.
Then?
It's a loading dock for that. The loading docks are truly for 2 tractor trailers to park there.
If you could approach so that it could be heard. No, you're good. It's just hard to hear on the, yeah, you're fine.
Yeah, so both loading docks to that side are accommodated semi-truck that handles for unloading back and forth, those 2 docks.
And then because, I mean, you do have an operating room space, so in terms of these loading docks, do you see any like EMS vehicle or ambulance vehicle, accessing the same
Not
loading dock area?
Not the same loading dock area, the parking lot behind. That's one reason why we couldn't shove it that, go back to the other sheet. I'm lost.
Yeah, I almost need a pointer or something there.
Sailor, you need a laser.
I'll get one.
Our goal back here is, we had a huge space back here for an ambulance to park back here.
Right.
behind, So we have direct access to the building.
Right.
So if there is a situation, kind of back of house, I can get in the ambulance and head up to the other hospital.
Okay,
And that's why we couldn't scoot that, what I'm calling loading docks, back any further, because we had room back here for ambulance parking.
okay.
That answers the 24-foot, but the other loading dock, we don't really, for the usage of the clinic, we just don't have the need, but it's also limited to space. If we made another one, we really couldn't get access back there for the ambulance to park and set up.
And is that ambulance access point, is that at level with, because
First floor, yeah.
Oh, it's first floor, okay.
Yeah. There's a retaining wall separating us from the adjacent property. Almost like it is today. If you're familiar with the site, the police station W sits down lower. We're exactly the same elevation as them, roughly.
Right.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
I'll move to adopt the findings of fact as submitted.
I'll second.
And these are referenced on page 29 for 008.
Right.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept the findings of fact, seconded by Ms. Cook. How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye. So we've accepted the findings of fact for VAR 25-008.
I move that we grant the variance for VAR 25-008.
And
Seconded.
Seconded, so we have a motion to grant this specific variance for -008, seconded by Mr. Misfeld. How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have granted that variance, and then the final variance for the VAR portion, anyway, for VAR 25-009. Let's have a look at the findings of fact.
To address what it is again.
Yes, and this concerns the long-term, the requirements
long-term
bearing on long-term
bicycle.
bicycle storage.
Okay. We had another one of these.
see. Well. Less at risk. So basically the variance, it's in accordance with expected bicycle use patterns,
Right.
this particular site.
So I'm-
And that's not just for this site, it's just campus-wide. Historically, there isn't really
Need for
the need for long-term bike storage, which seems
appropriate.
appropriate and reasonable to me. And thank you actually for making the accommodation for bike users, really. Morgantown is a bike town. The city's trying to encourage that mode of transportation, so thank you for working that into your plans. So, it seems reasonable. Any questions about that? No? Okay. I move to accept the findings of fact relating to VAR, or for VAR 25-009.
I second.
In terms of the long-term bike storage. And these findings of fact are referenced on page 34. We have a motion to accept the findings of fact, seconded by Ms. Cook. How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have a motion to grant the variance for VAR 25-009, long-term bike storage?
Yeah, I move that we grant the variance for 25009 for long-term bike storage.
Seconded.
We have a motion to grant the variance for VAR 25-009, seconded by Mr. Mistveld.
Subject to that one, staff.
And again, that one condition applies to each of the four variances. And again, that's referenced on page 23 it was, I believe, yes. So we have a motion to grant, seconded. How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So let's just state we've granted your four variances for that specific case, VAR 25-006 through 009. You will receive written notification from planning within 10 business days or so. But keep in mind, any work or the decision that we just rendered can be appealed in the Circuit Court of Montague County, and any work you do or undertake during that 30-day appeals window, you do at your sole financial risk. Moving on to the conditional use 25-010 and conditional use 25-011 as presented by Eric Winglar, 445 Van Voorst Road. Request by Eric Winglar on behalf of West Virginia University Hospitals, Inc. for conditional use approval for a shared parking facility use at 445 Van Voorst Road as required by Section 1365-04 of the city's planning and zoning code regarding shared parking facilities. City tax map 15 in the 7th Ward, tax map 6, parcels 74, 74.3, and 76.4 in the R1 single-family residential district. And then, well, they're both for the shared parking facility, but they are separated by subsection 010, 011. And Mr. Thompson, I'll leave it to you to speak to the individual parts of the conditional use request.
The applicant seeks to build the WVU Eye Institute in a shared parking facility at the reference location. The information of the acreage and stuff is the same as for the variances. picture for, just to bring you back to the site, that's where the parking garage is going to be, and the two conditionals related to it. And then that picture, which is in the packets for a little bit easier viewing, is showing the spaces, as well as kind of the road map of like how you would drive in and out of the property, and to give you a more specific view of the site and any related kind of questions to that of like parking spaces and stuff like that can be kind of referenced there. The two variances, or excuse me, conditional uses being sought is the first one of conditional use 25010. This is for the shared parking facility. During talks of getting this together for this development, if there was conversation about potentially having other WVU medicine type of personnel who would also be using this facility, which would take it into a shared parking facility, not just for the people specifically at this site. So they need a conditional use for that. The other one being conditional 25011 is for an off-site parking facility. These are separated on different parcels, so technically per code, this parking garage would be an off-site parking for the I Institute, even though they are their neighbors. It requires a conditional use for that. And then that concludes staff
And it's
report.
off-site because not attached.
Correct. The parcels are separated, and they're going to be connected by that, bridge, but that's parcel-wise, it's parcel whatever number it is, and they need parking for the Institute. There's none being provided on that piece of land. They're getting their parking off-site, which is the parking garage next door.
Right. I have a question, but do we have a representative for this case, for these two conditional uses?
Sure.
Or related conditional use cases?
Yeah, repeat myself again.
Yes, please.
Jeff Gola, Thrasher Group, 600 White Oaks Boulevard, Bridgeport, West Virginia.
Thank you.
And the request here is, like Sailor mentioned, we are separated by a property that's actually owned by the Morgantown Building Commission, mainly because of the access for the fire department. So we're across the street, and that's why we're asking for a conditional to have off-street parking. We are connected with the bridge, but theoretically, as he mentioned, we are separating because of that property we don't own in between, that we're sharing with the building commission. I forget what the other commission, there was two conditions being set across, and, for other use, shared use. So presently, there's a 400-space surface parking lot that serves.
That's my question.
Yeah,
Okay.
it serves the hospital today, because obviously the ICU isn't there today, so it serves the rest of the campus. By us putting a parking deck there, we're taking that space, some of that space away, so those people have nowhere else to park, so we gotta park it back in the parking garage. So we're just supplementing that back for the people we've lost to serve the Ruby that's being used today.
So the deck footprint is the same as the parking lot footprint?
Not right now, so the whole parking lot now is, you can't see it, there's a 400-space parking lot that goes from here, curved back to the back. So we're putting the parking deck in the front, so we're eating up that space that was used previously for some of the employees. So we build a new parking deck, we're displacing that parking space, and so that's where it becomes shared, because those folks can still park there in our eyes, but they're going to be going up the road to the Hawk campus to work.
Just one level?
No, the parking deck is 6 levels.
6.
Yeah. But the sharing part is we displace some, so as we all know, parking's constraints anyway, so we have nowhere to put those folks and put them back in the parking deck to equal out what we started at minimum.
And because you're upping capacity, did you have to, did this go before planning?
Yeah, for their, the number of spaces that they would need.
This is kind of outside our purview, but I'm just thinking, because this is an expansion, the volume,
Yep.
just in terms of traffic flow.
Yeah, we performed the hospital hired and we did a traffic study that's been presented to Department of Highways and all parties. And
again, it's
Check the box
outside our
off.
purview, but.
No, it's fine.
Just in light of, your neighbors with the fire department and just in terms of ingress and egress and everyone being able to,
Yeah,
do
we've
that.
actually had many conversations with the fire department, which was, that's why the bridge is a certain height above it, and we actually are, in my eyes, being a little selfish here, I think we're making the alley better, it's wider, we made a dedicated fire lane just for reference, so actually, I think the fire department would agree, we've actually gave them a longer path and a more direct path to get out, probably than what they have today. Because right now, there's parking all around that alley, there's no parking now, just in and out.
so it's a easier, straighter shot for the.
In my eyes, it is. I'm not sure, but we definitely made a direct, fully width fire lane. There's no cars parked in it. If you go out there today, there's cars parked for the police station. There's all kind. I mean, they can get through, but it's not as. This is like.
It's
tops.
cleaner.
Yeah, cleaner. Yeah.
No.
So it's sort of a win-win.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Or any other questions?
No.
So, do we, let's see.
Off-site parking and shared parking.
The findings of fact that they've been separated out, or for 0010, those are referenced on page 53, is that right?
That is, yep, you are correct. Page 53 is for con 25010.
Well, okay, so finding of fact number 1 on page 53, that first one states, you have a traffic management plan, but then the second sentence reads, although more traffic will not be visiting this site. I don't know if I'd make that.
I think that's a typo, it should be now, and not.
Oh, okay. Let's make that change, because I don't know if you could really make that statement. And okay.
So how are we changing?
So he's suggesting, so that first finding of fact, although more traffic will now be visiting the site, that reads better.
Okay, now.
Safe access to and exit from the parking structure is inherent in the design, because you conducted the traffic management study and executed a plan in accordance with the study. So, yeah, can we make that change? Because although more traffic will not be visiting this site, I mean, you still have the parking area to the rear that hospital can still access or can share, and you have a 6-level parking deck. So we need to change that to now.
Yeah, if that's what the board wants to do,
Because-
you're able to amend question 1 of findings of fact for code 2510
Yeah.
to include now instead of not.
Right.
And then, second finding of fact, I don't know, this new structure will not impact adjacent properties from this perspective. Okay, so the key, the operative phrase, prepositional phrase there is from this perspective, because you conducted the traffic management plan, and you've factored in contingencies.
Right.
Is everyone comfortable with that second one?
Yeah.
So long as it's from this perspective. That's the key.
Additional note, real quick, was a public hearing opened
Oh.
for these?
I'm sorry.
No,
Yeah.
you're good.
You're right, I'm sorry. So let's back up. We've addressed some of our concerns, but in light of point of order, we need to open the public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Thompson, for calling me out on that. So we're going to go ahead and we need to open the public hearing for this portion of the program, and this is specifically for CON 25-010 and CON 25-011. So, I'm sorry. Anyone wishing to speak in support of or in opposition to the referenced conditional use cases, now is your chance to do so. Seeing no one, we're going to close the public hearing. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. Sorry, everyone.
That's fine.
Okay, so back to the findings of fact. Okay, so the third one. I would agree, the fourth finding of fact, this structure will provide ample parking for the users of the I Institute. And then accommodations have been made in terms of pedestrian traffic, separating vehicular traffic from the pedestrian traffic, and you've also made an accommodation for bike users, especially with regard to short-term bicycle use. Okay. And then okay, so the fifth finding of fact, the need for this facility outweighs the additional congestion, which will undoubtedly result. However, in light of your traffic management study and plan, it's managed congestion,
Yep,
right?
yep.
Actually, in terms of the parking and accessing the existing just parking area, can you speak to like traffic flow from the rear parking area through and around your parking deck?
Yeah, so the intent, just for starters, I guess, all employees are going to go to the stoplight like you're going to Mountaineer Station.
Yes,
So
show us.
all traffic, all employees will go and they'll, north or south, they'll come and enter into the top and enter that way. And then everyone will enter from the stoplight intersection into the parking surface and or the parking deck.
Right.
All exiting is also exiting back that way.
Okay,
The only potential time that could happen to exit here would be is if someone gets picked up and you can't always control traffic, someone may want to come out and make a right only, but we're not encouraging that and we're going to sign it, but I can't guarantee no one will do it. But the goal is always for everyone to exit up to toward Mountaineer Station and leave at the stoplight.
Right.
Where it's controlled. And that keeps all the traffic on our campus and not onto the DOH road.
And that's likely because of the orientation of the parking deck and also the location of the existing parking area.
Correct, yes. Right now, that's how everyone leaves now. Today's surface parking lot, they always came and go from that area there. There was an exit here if you chose to, but majority, everybody always left toward the stoplight because you have that to make your left and rights more convenient than trying to pick and choose when you leave.
right.
Any other questions?
No.
With regard to, all right, thank you. So, I do need to ask, are there conditions, or do you want to speak to?
The conditions are pretty much the same for the variance ones. These would have been conditional on the planning commission having approved that, which they have already done, so that's no longer a condition on there. And the other one just would be if there's anything that they would modify that would put it, again, that's not in line with the ordinance, they would have to return to the BZA. Those were the only conditions for conditional 010 and 011.
Right, all right. So that same single condition, any last-minute changes to your anticipated plan that would require a variance or additional conditional use, you will have to petition. Okay, so
I move that we accept the findings of fact as stated in the packet with the one that was amended.
That one language change
Yeah.
to the first finding of fact, from not to now, on page 53. And I will second that motion. So we have a motion to accept the finding of fact specifically for CON 25-010.
Right.
It's seconded. How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have a motion to grant the conditional use for the 010 portion of this case?
Yes, I move that we grant the variance for CON 25-010.
Okay. And do we have a second for that?
Subject to staff recommendation.
Yes, yes, that
Yes.
one
Correct.
condition.
Yep. I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion by Ms. Cook to grant the conditional use 25010, seconded by Mr. Misfeld. How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, so we've granted that. And then the last set of findings of fact appear on, or are referenced on page 62. And again, we need to change the not to now.
So you want to amend the first findings of fact from not to now, correct?
Yeah, just to align it with the change that we made relating to 010. On page, whatever page that was, on page 53. So we're making the same change on page 62 from not to now to align it with the change that we made on page 53. And I think they're all very similar. And are we comfortable with the need for this facility outweighs the additional congestion? Are we comfortable with that? I mean, I am.
Yeah, they're building out a healthcare facility.
Okay. All right.
We need more healthcare.
Yes, we do. So, do we have a motion to accept the findings of fact for the CON 25-011? I will make that motion.
Seconded.
And seconded by Mr. Misfeld. So we have a motion to accept the findings of fact for CON 25-011, seconded by Mr. Misfeld. How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye. And now we need a motion to...
Yeah, I move that we grant the variance for CON 25-011.
Right?
Subject to staff condition.
Correct.
Yep. That one.
Seconded.
Okay, so we have a motion to grant CON 25-011, seconded by Mr. Misfeld. How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so as with your variance requests, we have granted your request for your conditional use for your parking facility,
The off-site
the off-site parking.
and shed.
So you will receive written notification for your conditional use from planning, generally within 10 business days. But again, as with the variances, it can be appealed to the Circuit Court of Montague County, and any work that you do during that generally 30-day appeals window, you do at your sole financial risk. Thank you very much for coming down this evening, and good luck with your undertaking. Good luck. Thank you very much. Well done. Do we have any announcements?
No special announcements other than the election for the new, or The reelection for the positions will be during our next regular meeting. If the next regular meeting is in March, it'll be on that one. If something comes up otherwise, it'll be in the next meeting we have.
And just in the interest of, not disclosure, but just openness and, we only have 3 members here, maybe in the email that goes out with the packet for March or April, maybe just reference.
Note it in there.
That that's specifically, just a specific reference to, hey, this is an agenda item, and it's an important piece of business that we need to attend to.
Can do.
So, anyone interested, or just be mindful of any nominations you may want to make.
Is the board the same this year? Like nothing changed over with the new year?
Everyone's been,
Well, Plyler,
I think Mr. DeWitt said that he had to interview, and I don't know, I think he was trying to I think he was saying that he had scheduled for it, but then he had to make a change.
I'm
I
not
don't know whether he
sure.
followed
Would we
through.
like to adjourn the meeting first, just to have it all
Sure.
wrapped up?
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn the meeting.
Seconded.
Well, we have a motion to adjourn, which was seconded, so moved. We are now adjourned.